I'm an innocent victim.
You're a psychotic.
Yeah, well, shh. That'll be our little secret. These people love a good trial. It's like theater, they're dying for it. And I've worked hard to give the audience what they want. See, that's what Billy was good at. He knew. It's all about execution.
Yeah? Well, you're forgetting one thing about Billy Loomis.
What's that?
I fucking killed him.
Hi Halloweenies, I'm Ozzy the Horror Cub. Take a trip with me to Windsor College because it's time to review Scream 2. Released in 1997, directed by Wes Craven, with script written by Kevin Williamson. This was the first sequel to Scream, and my god does it hit the ground running. First of all, how could you recreate the iconic Casey Becker opening scene to Scream? It's almost impossible, and yet Wes Craven does this so successfully with Kevin Williamson because they come at it through this meta lens of let's create the stab films. The events of Scream have already happened. Gil Weathers has written her bestseller novel, The Woodsboro Murders, which has now been readapted into a movie series called Stab. And this is where we get to meet the opening characters, Phil Stevens and Maureen Evans. Jada Pinkett Smith plays this role with such integrity and she sells it for me. Everything that happens within the first 10 minutes of this Scream film is just so iconic. These two are attending Windsor College. Phil and Maureen, though, they don't know Sydney. They don't know that story. They're going to see Stab because Phil got these tickets. It's a preview showing of the film. This is all based on the Woodsboro Murders by Gil Weathers, what just happened in the previous film. So 2 serial killers have been now immortalized in film. Of course, Maureen doesn't want to be there. She just wants to go see a Sandra Bullock flick down the street. Her boyfriend's trying to convince her to see this film. Don't understand what was going on with him in the bathroom stall. It was a little glory hole for my liking. That's why I love scary movies so much, for parodying that scene with Ray in the bathroom stall, because I never understood why Phil would stop and identify that strange noise that's happening behind the bathroom stall. Side note, I would love to actually go to a movie premiere that looks like this. They've got Ghostface on rigs, movies in stab vision, so everything kind of has this black light effect to everything and it's glowing green. I was super into all of it. But again, getting back to that meta lens that Wes Craven's creating, how do you recreate the first 10 minutes of Scream, the iconic opening with Casey Becker? Well, you make the Stab film, and what the first 10 minutes of the Stab film is doing is telling the Casey Becker story. So I thought this was so enjoyable to watch for the first time. I think the first time I saw Scream 2, it was in the late 90s. I was still little at the time. Scream 3 was just about to come out. This movie I remember being constantly played on TV when I was around 9 years old. 1999, I always recall this movie being on TV around then. The soundtrack to me always sticks out as being iconic as well. I mean, Everclear, The Swing, come on. You don't get any more iconic than the soundtrack from this movie. It's pure 90s nostalgia to me. Maureen's death, though, I mean, she does not want to be at this theater. She's trying to enjoy herself. She's got her popcorn. Her boyfriend comes back, and then the stabbing starts. And oh my god, let me tell you something. If you're in a movie theater and this is happening, and all the chaos that's going on around her at the exact same time, it really does play into the fact that you don't know if this is a movie stunt. You don't know if this is actually happening. This is a terrifying idea. This is a great follow-up to what's happening on screen with the Casey Becker lookalike that's running around. Side note, I love when they do the Stab Marathon in Scream 4 and everyone is quoting the Casey Becker lines as the Stab movies are playing in the background. Iconic, simply iconic. We then cut to Sydney the next day at Windsor College. She's being woken up by a mysterious phone call. She's got caller ID though, boo, so she's fine. We're also introduced to her new support structure in this film. Now let me tell you something, the second that these events start to unfold around her, Sidney Prescott descends into chaos. Neve Campbell plays this role so iconically, but she is a fighter, and that's something that we discover in Scream 2, is how much of a fighter Sidney is. I've got my top on right now of Sidney Prescott. I love you so much. Can you believe that Old Navy sells Scream 2 stuff? I know, right? Her new support structure in this film is Hallie. It is her roommate. Now, the funny thing about this is, the script was getting leaked ever so often, and one of the initial drafts was that Hallie was one of the killers in this film, that it wasn't going to be Mickey and Mrs. Loomis, that it was going to be Mrs. Loomis using Hallie and Sydney's new boyfriend Derek to do the new murder massacre. It wasn't Mickey as the original Ghostface. So, a great side note to this is, they wanted to give Hallie some representation in knowing horror films, and as she's getting ready with Sydney, talking about are they going to the sorority mixer later on that night, you can clearly see a Nightmare on Elm Street inspired sweater next to Hallie's closet door. This was supposed to clue into the audience that she liked horror movies and that she could be the killer. Of course, they went into a different direction with the scripts. They changed it. Mickey Altieri was the killer along with Mrs. Loomis. Debbie Salt gives me life in this movie. Whenever I watch it, I'm just like, yes, Roseanne's sister, work. There is a level of crazy that she reaches at the end of the climax of this film, and it just gives me life. Sydney needs to understand what's going on because she sees the news report as to what happened at the theater, and this prompts her to needing to get Randy. Randy's in film class, and they're discussing sequels, and this is a rather fun conversation. Did sequels destroy the horror movie genre? I'm dying to know. Let me know your thoughts on sequels down below. I do think that a movie like Scream that was made with such passion and care, maybe that's just from Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson putting so much love into this project. Plus you've got a great cast and crew like David Arquette, Courtney Cox, so you've got the original talent from the first movie giving this project life. I think if you make a sequel this way, with this much love and with this much respect for the legacy of the original that you're trying to pass the torch on from, you can make a great movie, and this is a fantastic movie. It's a fantastic follow-up to the original Scream, followed not only by Scream 4, because I really think Scream 4 brings us back to Woodsboro. The problem with Scream 3 is that it was not written by Kevin Williamson. I think that's why everybody faults Scream 3, because it tended to lean more into the comedy aspect, and it didn't placate more into the meta horror aspect that Kevin Williamson had so successfully created. And what this movie's trying to do is it's asking the question of sequels. We have this film class discussion about sequels, and they start talking about some interesting things in this class. First of all, we got Sarah Michelle Gellar sitting in this class. Hey you, looking gorgeous. She was just about to be Buffy the Vampire Slayer around the exact same time. And whenever I used to watch this movie, I used to always associate her to Buffy. So it always used to kill me that Ghostface got her and pushed her off the balcony right before that Everclear song comes on, because I was just like, you've got to fight. You are a fighter in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And Cece goes out so weak in this film. I'm sorry, I love me some Cece. I just want to eat popcorn on a couch with her, a little bit of pizza, and run around that sorority house with her because she gives me all the life that I ever needed. Mickey Altieri in this film is also Sydney's friend. Now, Mickey does some serious gaslighting to Sydney in this film. He's also in Randy's cinema class, so you've already got this new cast interweaved with the old cast. Side note, this is something that's always killed me. So they're having the conversation about sequels, and they start talking about Alien, and which is better, Alien or Aliens. And one of the kids in the class, hashtag Dawson's Creek, he says the line that Ellen Ripley says, "Get away from her, you bitch," which is the correct line from Aliens. But then Randy goes, I believe the line is, "Stay away from her, you bitch." This is film class, right? And then the professor like nods in approval of Randy. We cannot nod in approval for Randy over this because the correct line was said by the Dawson's Creek kid. It's "Get away from her, you bitch." Why did this line stay? I don't understand. We're having a conversation about sequels and we mess up the lines. Like, and especially coming from Randy. Randy is the film buff from part 1. Randy would have known those iconic lines, even if he was more into the Ridley Scott film. But this is where we're also meeting Mickey Altieri. Now Mickey, spoiler alert if you've never seen Scream 2, but he's one of our ghost faces. Mickey is hot, hot, hot. And let me tell you something, he goes through so many lengths to gaslight Sydney in this movie. And it's kind of really sad because, you know, Sydney has already been gaslit by certain men leading up to this moment. You know, Stu Macher, Billy Loomis, they really did a number on her. So she's going into this film not as the healed person of Scream 4 that came out of darkness, she's going into Scream 2 as a broken individual. And the second that all these murders keep piling up around her, including Cece, and when the killer does attack her that night at the sorority house, everything just starts to descend into chaos with her. And then you've got Mickey planting the seed that Derek, her new boyfriend, could be one of the Ghostface killers. So it's that gaslight manipulation process that Sydney just keeps having to endure in this film and keeps breaking her little by little by little. And you can see that she starts to put distrust into Derek. And Derek seems like a great guy. He's from a fraternity, gives Sydney his letters, which I think is so adorable. It's done in the most cheesiest songs, but you know what? It was the 90s, I'm gay, and I love a good song and dance. So you know what? Derek, we're gonna forgive this massacre of a song. But Mickey Altieri, I think I love you. I think I love you. So what am I so afraid of? That whole scene makes me cringe, especially with her detective cops watching, and he's on the table, but you know what? I love a good dance scene, and I'm gonna let it slide, because I think it adds to the levity of Scream, and I love how Mickey is kind of just doing his whole conductor thing with the audience, because he's trying to make his own movie. That's the cool thing about Mickey, is that he's trying to follow in the steps of Billy and Stu and create his own shriekwell. Not a screen make, we didn't get to that point yet, a shriekwell, I said it. When the chaos ensues at Windsor College, immediately Gale Weathers is back. Hey Courtney Cox, looking fine as ever, with those red streaks in your hair. I actually really adore Courtney Cox's look in the first 2 Scream films. Oh my god, what happens to her hair in Scream 3 is just, it's tragic with those bangs, but she gives me life with these streaks. The whole competition that she's having with Debbie Salt in this film. Now, Debbie Salt is a reporter journalist, and she's trying to get Gale's attention. She actually attended one of Gale's seminars a year previously in San Francisco, and she's trying to get a quote for her paper based on what the violence that occurred at the movie theater was it a result of Gale's book and the movie series. Debbie Salt and Gale Weathers have such great chemistry together as they bicker back and forth with one another over trying to get a quote over what happened with Maureen Evans. It's so overdramatic. It gave me that kind of like Dynasty-esque fight, and I was living for it every second of the way. Deputy Dewey Riley also shows back up in this film. He's like the supportive older brother of Sydney. He's just trying to make sure that she's safe and that she knows that if there is a killer lurking around, that he's already, or she, has integrated into her life already. Now again, this is already making Sydney feel so nervous and so insecure. She's about to go into her school production of this like Grecian play where she's playing the lead of Cassandra. However, she feels that she needs to step down because of what's happening to her. Everything is just kind of breaking her. I mean, everything that's happened from Maureen Prescott, her mother, having this whole double life, and having the affair with Codden, and having the affair with Billy's father, Mr. Loomis, the killing of her, and then the death of all of her classmates in the following film, her boyfriend revealing that he's a serial killer. Everything has just broken her to this point where she doesn't know if she can go on any further. And it's at this point that she has this amazing conversation with her drama teacher. It's always a drama teacher that saves you, let me tell you something. As one drama teacher over here, he instills something into Sydney. He lets her know that she is a fighter. And he looks at her dead in the eyes and he goes, say it. And she goes, I'm a fighter. And he goes, I don't believe it. And then she says it again, I'm a fighter. And that's something that Sydney Prescott represents in the Scream series. She is a fighter. She is a survivor. She's somebody that's going to take the darkness and she's going to rise out of it. And she's going to overcome any of the obstacles in her way. Any of the men or any of the women that are trying to subvert her or gaslight her, she's going to come through a stronger, more resilient person. And that's something that Scream 2 does. It really does break this character, because going into Scream 3, she's now a recluse. She's hidden herself from society. So this movie really did break her. And you know what? I blame everything that Mickey did on her with that gaslighting, because he manipulated her against Derek. Because you know what? Derek could have been a good boyfriend. And if you watch Scream 3, she's still wearing Derek's letter. So that kind of just breaks my heart. Gail and Dewey have this fabulous back and forth. I love the David Arquette. He has this great limp because of what happened with his spine. He was stabbed by Ghostface in the first Scream. He's having this one-off with Gail because he's telling Gail to get out of Sydney's life because Gail has tried to bring back Codden Weary. Now, if you don't remember from part 1, Codden Weary was the one that Sydney falsely accused of raping and killing her mother, Maureen Prescott. We now know that it was Billy and Stu using the help of Roman. Roman is her brother, that we're going to find out that mystery in Scream 3. Everything just keeps coming out of the woodwork. Dewey and Gail are no longer together. What I love though is their sexual chemistry in this film, and the fact that Dewey holds her so accountable for the Woodsboro murder book that she wrote, because every step of the way in the book, Gail is downplaying Dewey's intelligence, and he's even saying, you know, maybe the fact that I act so aloof is so that I can go under the radar. And that made me think, could he be the killer? Or is this just such a clever red herring that Kevin Williamson threw in just so that you would suspect anybody? Which could be the thing, because if you remember in Scream 1, you always want that red herring motif of who's the killer, who could it be? Although if they reveal in Scream 5 that Dewey is the mastermind killer behind everything, it could blow my brain, but we'll see on January 14th how that plays out. But Dewey and Gail are just so cute and iconic in this film. They're so quippy and back and forth with one another. Gail's cameraman is hysterical. Joel, he does not want to be there. He does not want to live up to the legacy that was Kenny. I feel bad for him because he's reading the book as all of this is going on, and he's like, listen, I was just here to film a couple promos. He did not want to be involved in all these shenanigans as things start going down. Now, Randy is giving out the rules of how to survive a sequel. Basically, there's going to be a higher blood count. The audience just expects it. They want that carnage candy. And let me tell you something. Something about Scream 2 didn't give me the carnage candy aspect that I really wanted. I just think the kills could have been upped a little bit more. I think Scream 1 had some iconic kills. I mean, you look at Casey Becker being strung from the tree. Iconic. You look at Tatum being killed in the garage door. Iconic. Even a couple of, like, the throat slices, what they do to Kenny. Iconic. Scream 2 doesn't really elevate it in the way that it should for me with the kills. There's some great kills. I mean, you look at Cece getting thrown off the balcony. I felt so bad for Cece in that moment. You look at the cop getting rammed with the pole and the pole ramming through his head. That's a great moment too, but I just kind of wanted the kill count to be kind of more creative, but it is very basic in this film. But a little bit more of inventive kills would have helped this film, but I do think it stands out amongst its competition, especially for the time period that we're in. We're in 1997. You're going into that time period where now all those movies are being made that are doing that whole social commentary on Scream, because Scream really did revitalize the slasher genre. Halloween in 1978 propelled it forward, but then it started to die out in the mid-90s. Scream revitalized it by putting on that meta lens, movies within movies, and these are characters that have seen horror movies and that know that they shouldn't go into that hallway, and that they know that they shouldn't say "I'll be right back" or drink alcohol. They know the rules of these films, and it has that meta flair. So all those movies that came after the Scream Renaissance, you had, you know, Urban Legend, Valentine, I Know What You Did Last Summer, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. All those movies were trying to capitalize off the success of the original Scream, but Scream 1997 does it so clearly, so well, because it was Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven directly continuing the success of Scream, and they didn't have those other projects, those pale imitations interfering with the legacy of Scream yet, and I do think that's why I put this movie on a higher pedestal, because it really came out during that iconic period of the slasher renaissance, and these two movies really do go so hand in hand together. Kevin Williamson does, how he blends these characters together, how he creates that doubt in your mind of, you know, this could be anyone to be the killer. The fact that it's Debbie Salt, I mean, blows my mind every single time. This is Billy's mother. This is, again, everything goes back to Maureen Prescott and the sins of the mother. Everybody is trying to get back at Sydney for something that she didn't have any control of. We find out that Debbie Salt is actually Mrs. Loomis, that Debbie's got it out for Sydney because Sydney killed her son Billy. Billy was a complete psycho, but that's not how Debbie sees it. Debbie sees it as Maureen was the one sleeping with Mr. Loomis, that's the reason why she left town. Billy was trying to avenge the fact that his mother was leaving town, that's why he was going after Sydney and Maureen, and now Mrs. Loomis is trying to avenge Billy. This is clearly a reference to Friday the 13th Part 1. You have Mrs. Loomis ascending to that Mrs. Voorhees character and taking on that mantle of avenging her son. Something really interesting that they did in this film, and she sells crazy. Mickey's motive is just really 90s. He's doing this because he wants to blame the movies. He wants to blame cinema violence, and he's gonna get the Christian Coalition to stand up for him, and he's gonna get Johnny Cochran to be his defense lawyer because he wants to blame the films. He wants to make the court case a shit show because he believes that that's the highest form of entertainment, is that courtroom procedure, and he believes that if he blames the movies, he can get out of it. I honestly wish we could have seen him blame the movies just to see if he could have gotten out of it using that excuse. To think that you could be that psychotic, to have that as your motive. I mean, you had Billy that just told you in the first one that watching these movies doesn't make you a psycho, that it just makes psychos more creative. Then you have this person that's just saying, no, I'm gonna blame the movies. It's an interesting juxtaposition, and Mickey, you know what? You are just hot as hell, so we are gonna let it slide. Doesn't make any sense, but we're gonna let it slide. God damn, you're funny and cute. The suspense in this film is so killer. Love the scene where Hallie trapped inside the car. They're trying to get out of Windsor College. The cops are escorting them out of campus. Ghostface is, of course, interfering shenanigans with the car, killing the cops. Ghostface gets trapped in the car with Sydney, and this is something that I really love about Scream 2. The suspense of her and Hallie trying to get out of this cop car because the only way out is over Ghostface, over the front seat of the car, the driver's side. The suspense is so killer. And the fact that Sydney wants to go back to unmask the Ghostface because she realizes at this point that she can't keep running, that it's just gonna take more people down with her. And Hallie's like, no, stupid people go back. So we think that Sydney's gonna be attacked if she goes back. Our expectations are subverted and Hallie is taken out. I honestly really liked Hallie. I really do find it interesting though that they were gonna try and make her one of the Ghostfaces with Derek. And I would have loved to have seen how that played out. You know what? I love Debbie Salt, I love Mrs. Loomis, so I'll let it slide. Hallie, you are severely missed. And you were right, you shouldn't have gone back there. She knew the rules of these movies and they still didn't let her live. Sydney is basically chased back to campus. Now because Derek gave out the fraternity letters and are now around Sydney's neck, he is being hazed by his fraternity brothers and he has been strapped to the theater. That whole production that they've got going on where Sydney's playing Cassandra, they've strapped him to this like elaborate crucifix thing that's happening. And this is where she sees him, she's trying to untangle him. Mickey comes out of nowhere and says that Derek is the second Ghostface along with him. Again, gaslighting Sydney even more. So now she doesn't know, should I untie Derek? Should I not untie Derek? Is this my boyfriend? Is he trying to kill me? Side note, Derek wasn't the killer. It was just Mickey trying to gaslight her. But this is genius. This whole setup, this whole dynamic of making her question, is her boyfriend the next killer? After all that she's been through already, it's heartbreaking. And then he just shoots him. Mickey just shoots Derek, and it's boom, done. Now, before all this is happening, there's a great chase scene that's occurring between Dewey and Gail and Ghostface, because he's chasing them throughout the film department. They're trying to watch some different video footage that was shot earlier that day by Joel to try and see if the killer is in one of those frames. As that's all happening, Ghostface is inside the university chasing them all around. Shenanigans ensue, but again, it's that suspension that Ghostface could be anywhere. There's a great scene with Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers as she's in the sound booth, and Ghostface is just sneaking around, and you don't know where he is, and it's up until where he stabs Dewey that you do find out, oh my god, there's Ghostface. But it's that suspense of he could be anywhere. I really loved how they play it. Courtney Cox, you are so iconic as Gail Weathers. You just sell this role for me. You give me all the life that I need. And I really do feel so sorry for Dewey, just because Dewey is just such a good guy. He really just wants to help. And the fact that he gets stabbed yet again, and it's like, oh, Dwight, come on, get up. But again, everything goes back to the theater. We learned that Mrs. Loomis is in it with Mickey. She's got Gail with her now. They've got a gun. Mrs. Loomis reveals the motive as to why she wants to kill Sidney, revealing the fact that she's actually Billy Loomis's mother. This is where she shoots Mickey, which is just so Billy and Stu when they start stabbing each other, because these killers always go up against each other at the very end, and it's like, you know what? If you could have just waited to reveal your master plan and waited to have killed each other till the very end, until all of the survivors were gone, you could have really gotten away with it. Now, as all of this is going down, you've got Leaf Shriver playing Cotton Weary, looking fine as ever, trying to still prove his innocence, trying to prove that, you know, he didn't kill Maureen, that he needs to be expunged. He really wants his 15 minutes of fame, and this is where he gets it at the very end of the movie, because he stumbles upon the shit show that's happening with Debbie Salt, aka Mrs. Loomis, and Sidney, and it's revealed that she's actually Mrs. Loomis. Sidney goes along with Cotton Weary's plan that she'll do a Diane Sawyer interview with him, wink wink, because he wants that 15 minutes of fame. He wants Sidney to tell her story with him, because he doesn't think it's enough to have the Gail Weather tell-all book. He doesn't think it's enough to have the stab movie. He thinks that he needs to have Sidney on air with him to say that he was innocent, just to expunge him, really give him that 15 minutes of exposure, which leads Cotton to getting his own TV show in Scream 3, which I think is absolutely hilarious. But before Cotton does get here, Sidney really does try to take her own agency into her hands. She basically takes an axe, starts chopping away at all the theater cords in the background. They start coming down onto Debbie Salt. The theater is basically crumbling around her, but that doesn't take her down. It's Cotton out of nowhere with a bullet, but it's Cotton Weary that really does save the day. And because of that agreement that's made with him and Sidney, that whole back and forth about the Diane Sawyer, her agreeing to it, he fires the bullet, shoots Debbie Salt. There was a moment though that you're thinking as the audience, wow, could he turn that gun? Because Debbie's trying to convince him, you could take Sidney out, be in this together. You're thinking, is he contemplating this? Is he thinking about working with Debbie? I don't know. Debbie gets taken out. Mickey comes back to life for at least one good jump scare, because you know the killer always has to come back to life. Mickey is then taken out again. Best plan ever. They just shoot them both in the head. That's iconic. Just bam. Okay, things that I didn't like about this movie, we gotta talk about it. The killing of Randy, I think, okay, I know if you're gonna kill a lead and it's gonna shock you going into the sequel, they had to pick Randy, I get it. It's just the fact that Randy is all of us. Randy is the people that love horror movies, and the fact that you killed Randy, going into Scream 3, it just kind of made it harder to watch that VHS recording of him, just because it made me feel sorry, just because I wanted his legacy to keep living on. But I think because it angered me so much, I think that just has everything to do with Jamie Kennedy, and what a great actor he is, and everything that he brought to the role of Randy, all the sincerity that was in him. I just think Randy is just such a great character, and the fact that they killed him just broke my heart. But you know what? That's my only con with this movie. Everything else is just genius. I love this story. I love that this was still made in the Scream Renaissance period. It didn't really have to worry about all those other copycats because it was coming out in the same year that I Know What You Did Last Summer had come out in, and Urban Legend, so it didn't have to compete with those films. It was only trying to live up to the first sequel, and I think that's why this film works so good as a Scream sequel. Shriekwell, it just works so well just because there was so much love and so much care put into this project. This movie for me is a 10 out of 10. I love this film. I can't get enough of it. It's damn perfect for me. I love Scream 2. I love how it progresses the story. I love how we're getting to know that the killer is trying to remake the original. I just think it's a great plot that moves the story along with these characters, throws a new methodology, a new wrench into the plot of what happened in the original, subverts your expectations yet again, but propels you forward with a great meta lens. That's something that the Scream films do so incredibly well. It's all about great meta horror commentary, great horror comedy, and it sells it so effortlessly. Scream 2 is a great movie. Let me know what you guys think of Scream 2. I'm dying to hear your thoughts on it. Do you love this story of Sidney Prescott at Windsor College? Let me know in the comments, sound off below. If you want your Scream 2 top, you can find it at Old Navy. Subscribe for all of our future content. Hit that like notification bell because we've got more spooky content coming your way, because guess what? We are about to launch into 2 months of Halloween on our channel. That's right, we're going to be doing all the Halloween movie breakdowns. It's like the road to Halloween. We've only got 2 months to go, guys. Halloween Kills is coming. We're going to be reviewing all the Halloween movies. I can't wait. Join me on my channel. Until next time, stay spooky.